to the UFC 232 recap show.
What just happened?
Sorry, I was playing with the effects there. I was having a little bit of fun. I told Whitney I was going to give that a go, so I was playing around with the echo a little bit, and I get so much noise in the back. Yeah, I know.
Support.
It sounds 232.
You're just having a little mini stroke. Nothing crazy.
Yeah. Well, thank you and welcome to the show, everybody. I'm sure you can already hear that the audio is a lot better. So if you listen to our first show, thank you for hanging in there with us. And you can see just in one quick show right over the weekend, Sean got a sex change and is much prettier.
Way prettier.
Well, you can see if you're watching on YouTube.
I'm more of a man.
Yeah.
Got tattoos.
Oh, shit. A little bit of a hit there. But if you watched our first one on YouTube, you can see that he's much prettier, and if you're listening, he sounds prettier, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
I'm just kidding. He's feeling a little under the weather. He's been working a lot.
Oh no, okay, we're playing. He's really not here. No sex change. Got it.
So I have my wife filling in for me, Whitney. She's gonna just read off some of the numbers and stuff for me, kind of play my
pretend
backdrop.
that I know.
She definitely
What's
doesn't
going
know
on?
MMA. She just looks and watches and is like,
"Oh no!
Why are they so mean to each other?
Where's bullying?"
This is bullying. They need to stop. It's almost 2019. Is this a comedy podcast? Because I feel like right off the bat, it can be, right? It could be UFC comedy.
2019, man. Anything can happen.
And you know what? Because my picks for this card were a joke, so this might be a comedy show anyways.
That's true.
Which we'll get into here in a minute. But yeah, so Sean's feeling a little under the weather, so Whitney's going to fill in and just have some of the information available for me. But anyway, so we're going to get into it. We're not going to move from the prelims first. We're going to start talking about the hot topics, the co-main and the main event. Man, were they crazy. Even Whitney, when she saw that Amanda Nunes won, she was like, no way. I thought the girl...
I was in shock because, I didn't stay for all the fights.
She was like, the girl's name is Cyborg. You would think she would win everything.
The girl just looks like she could murder someone with just a look. So I was shocked to know that. Hey, I don't know details of how Amanda Nunes is or Chris Cyborg is, so I can't sit there and say, oh, this one should have won instead of the other one. But
no, I know. It's just funny.
The look of it was... I thought she's more terrifying, so I just went with that, with the outer part of it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna. You know what? Actually, let's start with the pick first. Sean and I did not do well. Vegas whooped our butt on the picks, which generally I'm pretty confident going in against Vegas. I've won money before. I've paid for. In the past, I have actually paid for school books for a semester from betting. Yeah.
Good. Did I see any of that money? Just kind of curious.
No, you didn't.
Well, that's good.
I wasn't buying purses. No. I was buying school supplies to get an education.
Because that's important, kids.
No, she is so sassy. Oh my goodness. I'm regretting having you as a co-host right now.
I regret a lot of things.
I regret everything. She regrets this. But but yeah, so can you read off some of those numbers, like what we were for? Like, what was Sean?
Sean, he had... Chad Mendes?
No, what was his overall numbers?
Overall numbers are 4 and 9.
Yeah, so he...
So he was, 4 right, 9 wrong?
Yeah.
Damn!
Yeah. And then what did your beautiful hubby have?
Not looking. 5 to 8.
5 and 8.
So you weren't really that far. You weren't that far.
Goodness gracious. And what was Vegas?
9 to 4.
Yeah, they flipped Sean's numbers over there. Like I said, usually I'm pretty confident going in against Vegas, but man, they put a hurting on me this time.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Well, to be honest, I don't really watch a lot of these fights, but watching last night, a lot of weird things were happening. Last night.
You know what? I've literally wrote down in my notes because I take notes during the fights,
right.
Just so I can remember to recap certain aspects and pieces of it. Mm-hmm. And I wrote down here. I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me in like over a decade of me watching the sport. Mm. This sport humbles you. That's what I wrote verbatim. Mm. Because every time you think something's going to happen, it's going to go a certain way. It reminds you that there's always a puncher's chance, and you never know who's going to have your number, right? All the greats have always had somebody that had their number. Unfortunately, I thought Gus was going to have Jones's number, but that didn't end up happening. But yeah, I'm going to jump into that one. But yeah, so that wasn't pretty. I'll probably refer back to you on a few of those, and and see who he picked, because I know Sean and I both we'll jump into the Gus versus Jones fight first.
Right.
And I know both Sean and I picked Gus. I think that was more on a wish and a whim, but
Yeah, you both did. Yeah, you did. And Cyber.
I'll tell you, the first thing I noticed right away was Gus was just chasing Jones around the cage.
Oh,
and
really?
you can't do that, right?
I didn't see that one. I didn't see that fight.
No. But so the problem is, like, when the cage is already a bit smaller for these guys because they're 6'4" and 6'5" respectively. Gus is actually a taller guy, but John Jones actually has the longer reach, which is funny. Sean and I talked about this in our first podcast. Is great strikers, regardless, always seem to have weird reach. Like, they have weird reach. Conor McGregor's like that too. His seems like his arms go all the way down to past his hips, to his knees almost, or something. I don't know. It's weird. But so with Jones, yeah, he definitely has a longer reach. But the first thing I noticed that he was doing a little bit better is he was actually landing punches. He was landing those straight punches. The only problem is he's only throwing one. So I'll tell you right now, like, you can't just throw one punch. You have to throw combos, because when you're throwing one punch, typically if someone has a high guard, they're going to be able to block all of that. So you're throwing combos to break them open. So, like, if you're throwing a 1 up top, you get them to block here. You throw a 2 to the body, then their hands drop, and then you throw a 3 to their face, and then you know hopefully you can hit them with a few of those. So you're going up, down, back, up, top, right? So you're trying to break their guard. That's what a combo is, because if you're throwing one punch, someone's typically going to be able to stop that. But Gus couldn't stop. I mean, then again, John really only threw a handful of straights. But Gus's problem was he was hesitant, he was chasing John, and he didn't cut him off on the cage. John was moving back. He was circling back and around, and there was plenty of times where he had his back against the cage, and Gus didn't take the opportunity to stop him. When you have a guy against his back against the cage, especially when you're looking at a good wrestler like John Jones, it's harder for him to shoot in and take you down. So you have to take advantage there, especially with Gus having the clearly better boxing and stand-up. He has to, which, by the way, he needs to mix kicks in his game. He had a few leg kicks that moved John, but I think John got the better of the leg kicks through that fight. But he clearly has better hands. He has the power, because I think he threw a few hooks that moved John.
Right.
Granted, he blocked them. You know, he put up good, we call that answering the phone, because you put your arm up like that. He blocked them, but he moved every time. So he has the power. I think what it was is he was hesitant because he was afraid of getting taken down to the ground. He was afraid of the wrestling. I don't want to say afraid, but he was.
Gus was actually afraid of the wrestling, because I'm assuming John Jones does that.
John Jones is a super strong wrestler.
So he likes to get them down to the ground.
Exactly.
So he knew how he was, so he was trying to avoid that situation.
But here's the thing, though. I mean, Gus just had to rely on his ability, because he's the first person to ever take the double champ DC, who is also far and above, like, the best 205 after John Jones, of course. And he's the only person to take John Jones and DC down, not to mention stuff multiple takedowns from both of them. At one point in the first fight with John Jones, he stuffed like 9 of 10 takedowns. Insane. So I don't want to say that this is a story of how Gus lost it. This is, I think, the better way of putting it is this was John Jones putting in a lot of hard work. I thought he was going to overlook Gus for a couple reasons, but I don't know if maybe it was the steroid allegations again that really brought him into focus, because he had that going into this camp.
Right.
Which we'll see if he tests, but because he had to get tested by VADA.
All right.
So that means that's the California's commission, or sports commission, that does the sports blood testing. So he had to do that the day of the fight. So we'll see what those results look like.
Oh, they haven't even got the results back.
No. This is what happened to him.
So I would hope that he got his crap together, because if he won and everyone's all hooping and hollering about it, and then he fucks up by having the, excuse my language, steroids in his system, why would he even try? Why are you even trying if you know they're going to catch you? He's already been stripped of his title twice. I would hope that he would learn by now that... You would think so. You would think. But this is why Sean... But I don't understand why they went away for the results, though. Because they moved the event last minute. The whole event was supposed to take place in California. Gotcha. He tested in Nevada, and
they picked up some stuff on it, and they didn't have enough time to decide whether or not, he was still able to fight. So they literally picked up the event, moved it 4 hours west to the California, and held the event. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's interesting to hear the stories. Like, the fighters took a big hit. Like, a lot of the fighters were pissed at Jones because the taxation there is a lot different. So they were getting anywhere from 13 to, I want to say it was. I'll just say it was in like the mid-teens percentage taken out of their fight purse.
That's not right.
That's terrible.
Especially if it comes out to being that he's positive in his results. So you did all that for nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well. Yeah. I mean, that was crazy. I thought that was terrible. And some people were arguing, well, they wouldn't get paid if John Jones didn't show up. And my argument to that is they get flat fees. Like, they don't get paid pay-per-view. The main event and the co-main event get pay-per-view shares, which are always disclosed. But they get flat payment for it. So they would still have the end-of-year show if John Jones couldn't make it.
They just wouldn't have lost money.
They didn't have to travel.
Right.
I saw one guy on a forum said that he was coming from Australia to watch this event, and now he has to drive another 4 hours to California because he got his hotel and all that stuff. And it was crazy. But anyways, I'm just going to stick. Yeah, I just want to stick to the fights on this one, just because, God, the media just really beats it into the dirt. It's crazy. Whatever John does outside the ring, that's his own business. But still, it could affect other people when you're doing things like that. But in the ring, so, we talked a little bit about the circling. I think Gus really missed the opportunities to cut him off. He let him move backwards. He let him move outside and along. And so instead of taking that angle and cutting him off, the problem is he even had him up against the cage a few times and he hesitated. He didn't throw anything. That's when you got to throw those low. If you're anticipating him taking you down, you have to throw uppercuts. You have to throw knees. You have to throw something, assuming that his head is coming down, and that's where your body is going to meet him in some way, shape, or form. So it's still a good fight. I think the interesting thing is that Jones clearly has trouble with the stand-up when he's fighting somebody as tall as him.
Right.
Because he's massively oversized. At 205. He's like 6'4", and I mean, the next best fighter after Gus was his 5'11", Daniel Cormier. So I mean, there's a huge difference in height, but to his credit, though, he uses it very well. He always has. Whether it's those oblique kicks, low leg kicks, he really uses his distance really well to keep people at bay, so that way he can fight his game. And then as people are shooting in, like to get in the pocket, that's when he takes them down and he does his thing with wrestling. But I think the interesting thing is, it's hard for him to match up shot for shot with people that are as tall as him. So I don't know. At first I was saying he should really move up to heavyweight. I think he'd crush that class. There's not a lot of athletic guys at heavyweight. And it's a very thin talent pool, but I don't know. It's hard to tell. So I'm trying to think. Let's see. Was there some other things that I was throwing? I noticed that in the first round, Jones looked good throwing some straight punches, which we didn't see much of in the first fight. Gus landed some combos. Oh, the other thing, too, was Gus was I think in the first round, Gus was landing better on the breaks. So that's like when they're clinched up together, and then they separate from one another. He's throwing punches on the way out. You can't just let people walk away from that. But in rounds 2 and maybe early in 3 before the fight finished, Jones really got ahead on that. Yes, that's my first note in round 2. Jones getting hits on breaks. Gus is starting to get slow. So Jones really picked it up, which doesn't surprise me. I would figure that that's a big part of his game as a wrestler, is that if he's going to have that clinch game against someone that's clearly a better boxer, is you got to have that good and tight close game.
Right.
You got to be able to throw uppercuts. You just have to do hooks, things like that, just to make him not want to be in there again. Round 2 was a lot more of watching Gus chase John Jones, not cut him off. He missed a ton of opportunities, I thought. But then again, that's also could be just Jones did really good with those kicks, threw his range off, and just moved really well. So, and then he had the takedown. He worked position so fast. That was a little disappointing to not see Gus be able to get back up. He was able to get back up. The last time John Jones took him down pretty easily. I think the last 1 or 2 times John Jones has taken him down, he's gotten up pretty easily. But this time, John just got really good position. I think, if I remember correctly, he had half guard. Gus tried to move over, and then he took his back and then just pounded him out. Luckily, he didn't go out, but I mean, it was a stoppage because he was just defending himself, and he had him laid out. Got to get those hooks in, and then lay these guys out. So it was a great fight by John. It's nice to see that I like when fights are ended and they don't go to decisions. Just from the last one, that it was mixed feelings. Some people thought Gus won. Some people thought John won.
Right.
Obviously, the judges thought John won, of course, but just like their general fan base, right? So it was nice to see it finish because that makes it more definitive that I won this fight. The interesting thing was he called Daniel Cormier out at the end. I have mixed feelings about that because on the one hand, there's nobody else for him to fight at 205. It almost feels like the UFC is like forcing contenders in. So we'll talk about it in a little bit, but there was an earlier fight. We won't talk much on this, but Yair versus Corey Anderson. Yair Latifi. I love his name.
I know.
But both those guys are generally run-of-the-mill light heavyweights. But I'm thinking that they must have put him up there hoping that one of those guys would win big, so then that way they can push him into a contender spot just to have somebody for John to fight. So on the one hand, it's always nice to see him fight someone really good. I thought DC actually had the better of the striking. I thought he was handling John well until he got caught with a head kick to the face, man. I mean, I guess your head's the only place you're going to get caught with a head kick, but
that is 100% true.
You're not going to get a head kick to the body because then it would be a body kick. So
smart.
I know. I put stuff together. I just need a few minutes, and you can see my brain working. I'm like, I'm going to get there. I'm good at simple math. Let me put this equation together. Okay. But anyways, so I have mixed feelings because I think DC's better at heavyweight. I'd like to see him stay up there. It's easier for him to make weight. He's a big boy. He's heavy. He's only 5'11", but he's a heavy boy. And I think John needs. I think it would be good for him to move up to heavyweight. I don't think there's as athletic guys, but they're strong. That's the thing. They're strong and they're tall. So I think it's more of a challenge up there just because if there is one guy that just happens to be on and he's a heavy hitter and he's just stuffing John's takedowns and he keeps it standing, he might be able to, rock his world. But then again, the kid's showing that he's tough, man. He can beat Coke. He can beat your punches. So.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to read notes that Sean wrote down, a few of them, but
he writes in chicken scratch.
Yeah. I'm like, nope, not even trying to attempt it.
Yeah. I know.
All I see is good value John Jones. Don't know what that means?
Oh, no. That was a comment about a guy from the undercard that Uriah Hall knocked out, Bevan Lewis. He said he looked like a good value John Jones.
Oh, okay. He wrote it down.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, because it was pretty funny.
Oh, my God.
He looks like this one other fighter named Rashad Evans, who John Jones coincidentally trained with. But he moves like John Jones. He's tall, skinny. I think he's about the same height. He's like 6'3", and he moves like him because he trains with him. So He does like all the same kicks. So Sean's like, this kid's like a good value John Jones.
So he wrote that down.
He's the Walmart brand.
He's a Walmart brand? Oh,
I don't know if I can say that, but whatever. We're early. We
Yeah.
won't get in trouble.
We won't get in trouble.
You're moving way too far from the mic.
I'm sorry. Give me a second.
Stop playing with your pockets. Woman.
Do what I want.
So I think that's pretty much it for that fight. I don't know where Gus goes from here. I think he's just going to be a gatekeeper unless John moves up to heavyweight. He's always going to be living in DC and John Jones' shadow, just because he's lost to John twice. He lost to DC once. He lost to another guy that could have been the champ, Anthony Rumble Johnson, who would have been a fantastic heavyweight. I know, isn't that awesome? Anthony Rumble. That dude is a
sounds
freaking
like WWE
monster. You should see this guy. I'll have to show you some videos of him afterwards. I mean, this guy has dynamite in his hands. He can knock anybody out. He's like 6 foot.
Do you think that's his real name though?
No, it's Anthony Johnson. His name.
I was gonna say, wait for a minute. Is that his real name? I think you made that shit up.
No, he just has the dopest.
There's no judging here, so whatever I say, you can't go, wow, she's stupid. No judging. I can say what I want.
Whitney's not into sports. She's an
I'm into
artsy type.
Sports.
Now,
I am artsy fartsy, but
yeah, I've pushed you to that.
It's not pressure.
So Jones, it's either he's going to move up to heavyweight, and actually, I guess DC did tweet after that he'd be willing to come back down as long as Jones is really hitting the tests hard to make sure he's not doping. I'd be interested to see them fight at heavyweight, because even if he beats DC again for a third time, which I don't get why he's picking on a guy that he's beat twice. You know what I mean? Like, fight someone else.
Yeah,
fight someone up and coming. But. Well, actually, his second fight didn't count. He knocked him out, right? Mm-hmm. But it didn't count because that was when he got busted for roids.
God, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope there is.
He still beat him twice, but...
You're talking about John Jones, right? I'm hoping to God that doesn't happen again with him, the results coming out. And
so get this, right? Actually, I don't think we mentioned this in the first podcast because we saw this afterwards. In the preview show for UFC 232, Dana White went up to Gustafsson and said... John's been tested 8 times and he's never come up. This is such a small amount. It's not his fault, this and that. So he told Gus he tested 8 times, which he did. He got tested 8 times. Mm-hmm. He said he's never come up before. And Jeff Nowitzki, who's in charge of the athletic commission that does the testing, showed the results. He popped up 4 times. Maybe it was 3 times. So Dana White lied right there, but that's typical of him. So
he lies a lot.
Yeah, he lies a lot. But I mean, it's really small, really microscopic small doses. That's why I haven't really touched on it. I don't know the science behind it. I'm not going to talk about it. But I will say, like baseball, people were micro dosing, so they were taking very, very small amounts because it gets out of your system really fast.
Gotcha.
So I don't know if I believe, who knows? He looks bigger to me, so he doesn't look flabby. So, which is sometimes an effect that you see after guys take steroids. They get flabby, like Vitor Belfort. I don't know. I know the facts, and it doesn't look pretty. That's always going to be an asterisk next to his name, regardless of what he thinks. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. I would like to see him go up to heavyweight. I think there's a great opportunity there because the talent pool is thin. DC's waiting up there. He's probably got 1 or 2 fights left of him before he retires. He's 40. So John Jones is 10 years younger than him. On top of everything else, he's a much younger guy. So I don't know. Hopefully he does something good with his youth, his career. He's the best fighter we've seen, regardless of how I feel. He's an incredible fighter. So we'll see how that goes. And Gus, he's a great fighter. He's very entertaining, I think. But he's just going to be living in the shadow of the greats, unfortunately. I don't know if it's just bad timing because there's 2 incredible fighters that run 205, number 1 and 2 respectively, or if he's just meant to be number 3 forever. But we'll see where he goes as well. I'd like to see him fight Corey Anderson, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. He fought earlier on the card against Zaire, because I think that would be a good test for Corey Anderson to see how good he is. So, but anyway, so let's move on to the next fight.
Well, then,
Cyborg.
I know. I was actually kind of excited to talk about this one.
I know your reaction too.
I'm like, let's go.
You saw the picture of Amanda with the double belt.
I know. I was in shock. I looked at you like, raised. Wait a minute. Like, she won? I'm in shock. I mean, not that I really know too much about these 2 fighters. I'm just saying I don't know. I mean, when they show you clips of Chris Cyborg and her training, I don't know. She kind of I feel like she could tear up anybody immediately.
She has.
She looks good. I mean, I've seen some of the clips and everything, and she looks amazing. Not that Amanda Nunes isn't, of course, obviously, but I just was in shock to see that she won.
So here's the thing: it's not like we didn't think that she was a bad striker. We didn't think that she didn't have the talent. It's the size.
Right. Oh, that's true. Yeah. Right.
So they're both the same height, but Cyborg's big. Like
she's got muscles,
thick.
Man. Yeah.
She runs 7 miles a day. She has the cardio. Like she trains specifically with her heart rate. Like her and her team actually practice getting heart rate back down, and like that's a big part of her cardio piece. So it's interesting to see. Oh, hold on 1 second. I just want to check something here. Why won't it let me roll? Sorry, having a little difficulty with my audio program here. Which, luckily, it's still on, still good. Just making sure, because it ran out of screen. I'm like, no, where is it? All right, cool. We're still good. I need a...
And they're both Brazilian, right?
Yeah, so that was one of the concerns.
That was one of the concerns.
Because Cyborg, which I don't ever get, but like they don't like fight. Brazilians don't like fighting each other.
Maybe it's a respect thing.
Well, here's my thing though about it is, I've always said the good thing about MMA is it's not supposed to be like country versus country necessarily. It's supposed to be fighter versus fighter.
Right.
As much as I love Anderson Silva, who is one of my all-time favorites, he always did that too. He gave too much respect to other Brazilians. So it's a little frustrating, to be honest.
Like, I get it, but at the same time, it's not like you just said, it's not country against country.
No.
You know, it's a fighter against a fighter. Exactly. It's not anything personal. It's a job, and this is what you do. And
because
you both are Brazilian.
We have an opportunity to miss out on some great great fights just because I mean, they don't want to fight each other, and Anderson has historically, I'm not going to talk too much about him because we're focusing on Cyborg here, but Cyborg and Nunez, but he's held back against Brazilians.
Right.
But
right back to Chris Cyborg though, because I didn't watch the fight. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what happened? And
I'm going to get into it. I mean, the thing was barely a minute long.
I know, I see that.
So going back to what I was saying, like, it's not like I didn't think Amanda was a bad striker in any regard. It's just like I questioned her mental state because she fought a much smaller, which she's a great striker. So I think she gave her too much respect. And this girl named Valentina Shevchenko, and she hesitated. She barely threw any shots. She's much shorter and much smaller than a Cyborg, who's a much more physically intimidating person.
Right.
Cyborg can typically run through shots. She's strong. She's fast. She's got the cardio. She's used to handling big fighters. So but Amanda looked sizable against her. She, when they actually got in the cage, they stood across from one another. They looked sizable. Obviously, one of their bodies looked a little softer than the other ones, but that's not necessarily an indication of your cardio. So, because sometimes people that carry more muscle, they tire out faster. So, she came out blasting though. Holy crap. So Joe Rogan and the commentators like, she is just winging shots. She's just winging shots. But the thing was, they were so crisp. Like, she wasn't just randomly throwing shots out there and just winging, just throwing Hail Mary shots.
Right.
She was throwing clean, crisp hooks over the top, because Cyborg has her shoulders low, hands low, so she's throwing like this. Amanda's coming over top, like she's throwing a straight low right. Sorry if you're not watching me on YouTube and you're just listening to the podcast. I'm like making the motions, but so her shoulders and her hands are a little bit lower. She's throwing straight from her shoulder,
right.
So Amanda's throwing up top and just blasting.
You know what? She might have wanted to go as fast as possible because maybe she knows how Cyborg can be, and she just thought to herself, if I don't do this quickly, it's gonna go bad.
Yeah.
So maybe she was just like, fuck it, she ran out there and just did what she had to do, man.
And honestly, like there's not much I can say to make it like she landed a beautiful left hook. I think at one point she even had her back to the cage and still threw like a few shots just to get her rolling. I could not believe. I mean, she was determined.
She knew what she needed to do, and she did what she had to do.
That might have been, to your point, that might have been part of the game plan. She came out there. She's like, I'm not going to give Chris.
You don't want to give her too much opportunity because if you see her fights, I mean, she probably was just like, no, there's no playing here. I need to hurry up and get this done and do as much as I can, and she did. And it lasted for what, 51 seconds? So she.
I don't think any like if you would have bet on that, like the fight ending.
Yeah.
Because what was the odds for Cyborg? Like it should say like in the Vegas section.
In the Vegas section.
It should say minus a number.
Oh, let's see. Where is she?
She might be.
Oh, okay, minus 255.
Wow. So Cyborg was a huge favorite. So that means that
because everybody assumed.
Because that means you would have to bet $252 to win $100, right? So Cyborg, Amanda Nunes was already a plus 252. I think they were like even on the opposite side. So that means if you bet $100, you would make $252. Something like that. I think that's how it goes. But so, and then if on top of that, you said in the very first round of a 5-round fight, you thought Amanda Nunes was going to knock her out, for whatever few people actually put that money down on that, they made money last night.
Oh,
Cha-cha-cha-ching.
Oh,
They're buying their wife's purses.
Oh, man. Son of a bitch.
But you know what? There's nothing like there's nothing here I can say other like on the technique side that I mean Amanda just came in head down. She said she's the lioness for a reason. That's her nickname, the lioness. And she came in and she ate her up. It was. I
think that was probably a game plan for her before she walked out there. She knew exactly what she was going to do, and she just went for it.
Dude, that's why you can't miss these women fights, or these ladies fights. They come out and ball, man.
Well, I was going to talk to you about that. What's her name? Megan Anderson?
Yeah, we'll get to that one shortly.
Because one of your situations, what you just said, is that, that one ended really quickly.
Yeah.
With the young lady.
Kat Zingano.
Yeah.
And that one was disappointing.
It ended,
I know
that was a freak accident. Like that, that just happened. Like nobody expected something like that.
Girl went
but the girl said that they can't find anybody. They were unable to find anyone to fight her because they just don't have any women.
At 145. It's tough enough to find. I think like the UFC has been rumored to start an atom weight division, which is 105, which I'm sure there'd be a lot more women, especially coming from the Asia market.
105?
105.
Very nice.
You gonna cut down? Maybe have a fight?
No pizza. I'll go to 145.
You want to weigh 145?
Because it gives me an excuse to eat a little more.
She's like, I'm having chocolate milk.
I'm gonna have chocolate pizza. What the?
Chocolate milk and pizza.
Hey, they have that.
No, they have. Like honestly, they haven't really given Cyborg too many good contenders since she's been in the UFC. There's maybe been like 2 or 3 semi-legit.
I do want to say one thing though, real quick.
What?
You said 105, the Asian division. It's pretty fucked up.
Wow.
Not all Asian women only.
No, it's because
100 pounds. They don't all weigh 100 pounds.
No, the reason is because MMA is huge in the Asian market, and they have a lot of smaller people in their atom weight divisions.
They do.
And they have some stars like in the UFC, like Michelle Watterson, who's typically fought at 105. So for the women's division. So I know you're trying to be funny, but you're not doing that to me. Not on my show. This is my show, my house.
Oh. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll see you later. Just kidding.
Yeah, you won't. I'm going to blind you.
Domestic abuse real quick. Oh, my God.
Don't use the D word on my show. Not that one. Comedy Hours back.
I feel like you're going to see a lawyer tomorrow.
God. But yeah, anyway, so I mean, the one thing I would say is like Joe Rogan and the commentators were saying like, "Oh, Amanda's winging it. She's just throwing punches." And to give her more credit, those were crisp, well-timed, well-landed shots. They were beautiful.
She wasn't
put
just
Cyborg
going
down.
out.
No, exactly. But there's nothing I can really say on technique. She came out there. She did what she wanted to. If anything, keep your hands up, people. If you're training, keep your hands up.
Yeah.
So. Cyborg, I don't know what's next for her. Actually, I guess now is a good excuse for her to fight Megan Anderson, who we'll talk about in a little bit, because Megan Anderson came over as the Invicta female champ at 145.
Oh, okay.
So they were trying to make her a contender, but she lost her first fight to Holly Holm. So I guess Cyborg has that opportunity. Yeah, Holly's awesome. And then now you got the powerhouse Nunes. I don't know who the heck she's going to fight. She's tore up the 135 division. There's nobody at 145 for her to fight. Like, she's just going to have
well,
some
if you
rematches.
give me some fucking pizza. Oh, fuck. Come on, Amanda.
Hey, she made 500,000, I think, last night before. Oh, actually, she might have made 400,000 last night before pay-per-view and sponsors, because they can release what the UFC's paying them, flat purse. So if you want to go get knocked out in 51 seconds, like real quick, right now, right?
Like, oh no,
$500,000 for that? I'll take that all day. So
you get knocked out for $1 million any day.
So yeah, that's
Life
pretty
goals.
much that's pretty much it for that fight. It was incredible.
Yep.
Hopefully you did not miss that. That was wild, but it's one of those things you have to see live too.
Yeah.
Just to watch her go. It's still impressive to watch the replay from that.
I know. I do need to see that. To be honest,
Yeah.
I do want to see that.
It's incredible. So, good going for both girls. Nunez, you're a beast. Let's see what she has. What comes up next for her. So.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to move on to Condit versus Chiesa. This one wasn't pretty for me to watch because I love Carlos Condit, but the thing that impressed me about Chiesa is he came up from 155, so he was going a weight class up.
Right.
I didn't think he'd be able to handle the strength. I didn't think he'd have the strength at that level. He definitely doesn't have the striking to match Condit, but he doesn't need it because he rushes in. He'll wrap you up and he'll take you down, and apparently his jiu-jitsu is just next level. He knows exactly what he wants to do, and he gets it done. He looks strong. He looks big. He's tall. He's like 6'1".
Wow.
So he's actually pretty big welterweight. It blows my mind that he was down at 155. I thought Condit actually looked good. He looked like he was in the right mental state. I thought he actually won the first round, even though he was on his back. He was throwing up submissions. He was throwing punches. I actually thought like he should have won the first round, but that's not the way MMA judges typically work. If you're on your back, they'll typically give the round to the other guy, which is why he lost the Johnny Hendricks fight. He won that. To me, he won that fight. That was bull crap. But Johnny Hendricks took him down 3 straight rounds. Didn't land it. Hardly landed any punches. Carlos Condit was throwing up submission attempts. I actually thought, man, he had him in a deep arm bar. I can't believe Chiesa didn't hyperextend his arm or his elbow or something.
Right.
He had this really, really deep elbow. I think the other thing, too, that I saw from last night is jiu-jitsu hasn't gone anywhere. Like... Lately, since striking's picked up, a lot of people are training wrestling, and with the way the gloves fit, it's harder to do jiu-jitsu, especially when guys start sweating. So we haven't seen a lot. I shouldn't say we haven't seen a lot, but it didn't feel like you got to see a lot of the high level moves. But I mean, last night we started seeing that, and then Chiesa did this crazy Kimura, which I didn't know if they were going to call that an armbar or Kimura, because typically with a Kimura you have to have their arm bent and then you crank their shoulder back. Wow. Yeah, but he actually straightened his arm out, and then that could have easily turned into a reverse armbar, because if he had his arm straight out and he put pressure on his elbow, then he has the opportunity to snap his arm, and he had it straight back. So it was like a Kimura armbar situation.
Jeez.
And oh my god! And then even after he got up, like you could tell Condit was in pain,
right?
And you thought like he had tore something, but I mean, he walked out. He looked fine. He walked out fine, but he even had his arm behind him still.
Jesus.
So Chiesa did exactly what I didn't think he'd be able to do. He matched him size for size. Between that fight and the Amanda Nunez fight, it made me start thinking about, one, how much weight these guys are cutting. I always knew that they cut a ton of weight. Like, there's people that, like Jose Aldo fights at 145. He walks around at 170. There's plenty of people. Anthony Rumble Johnson, who I mentioned earlier, would walk around 225. He cut down to 170. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But to see that sometimes there's not really a big difference in strength between 10, 15 pounds. Because that blew my mind to be able to see Chiesa just manhandle Condit in that way. So even though Condit won the first round, Chiesa's jiu-jitsu was way better, man. He did it right. He moved position very well. Had showcased high-level grappling. man, it was good. They rolled pretty well in the first round too. There was some great defense on Condit's piece, as well as offense. So again, that's why I thought Condit won the first round. But Chiesa just showed a lot of strength and good position and was able to get that Kimura in. So, but again, if I would say to anybody, if I have young listeners or somebody that's looking to get into MMA, you need wrestling and defensive jiu-jitsu as a base in MMA. You can't not have that, because there's not as many high-level strikers as there are ground, like jiu-jitsu and wrestlers, because wrestling's big in America, one. Jiu-jitsu's becoming big in America, right? Thanks to the Gracies. But also, it's easier to train that than to get hit in the face. So there's, like, even when I was running the amateur circuit, everybody seemed to specialize in jiu-jitsu. A lot of people had wrestling bases. So, if there's anybody that's ever thinking about that, I would highly, highly recommend you start with some freestyle wrestling and defensive jiu-jitsu. So, good on Chiesa. He called out Neil Magny, which I thought would be a fantastic fight for him. Neil Magny's a big 170, but he goes up and down. He'll have one good fight, and then one you make him like, So I think that this would be a good matchup. Condit, honestly, I thought this was going to be the easy fight for him to win and retire on. I don't know. He might need. Maybe the UFC will gift him one more guy. I can't see him staying. He's lost 6 in a row now, or 5 or 6 in a row now.
5 or 6 fights in a row, huh?
Yeah, so they're probably going to cut him. Or if he doesn't get cut, he's going to retire. It's going to be one of the two. I thought if he won this fight, he was going to retire. So I don't know. He might
try for another one.
Yeah, I don't know. That's if the UFC keeps him. So
good
luck to Condit, and I hope he gets one more fight, maybe against someone a little lower level. He can get a quick win and get out of the game. I think it's past him now. He has too much wear and tear. But awesome to see Michael Chiesa up at 170, a new potential contender. So excited to see that. All right. So what was the next fight?
All right. So the next fight would be Ayer and Corey Anderson.
Ayer, yeah. So this fight was relatively boring.
Well, I can see the time was 3 rounds, 5 minutes, right? Is that how
they went to decision. So this fight wasn't stopped. There was nothing impressive here. I think it was exactly what you expected. Ayer throwing heavy leg kicks. He was throwing some big winging shots. I think he threw really well on breaks. So when they clinched up, because he's a much shorter fighter. Yeah. I think he's like 5'10", 5'11". Does it show on there? If you click on Ayer Latifi, it'll bring up his stats real quick. Yeah. But either way, he's really short. Anderson's a bit taller. And so we expected him to get in on that clinch game and stuff. So he looked pretty good, but I think Corey really picked up in the second and third rounds. That was when he really was able to keep his distance. He had great footwork, actually. When I remember and then looking at that fight, he was moving side to side a lot. He wasn't standing straight up on the guy's center line, which is great when you're throwing fighting a power puncher like that. Someone that's going to wing shots.
It's telling your total strikes and takedowns.
Yeah, if you want to throw some of those stats up, if you see anything interesting on there, you can.
Well, let's see. You have 68 for Corey and 90 for. I don't know. Was it the same?
For which one? Significant strikes.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me see.
Right. Well, look at that a little bit, and then I'll get back to you here in a second. Yeah. I'm just going to run through the rounds. So, starting the ground with great footwork. Yeah, like I said, Corey looked really good. He actually had some great footwork. He was moving side to side. We see that. I see a lot of good strikers are starting to do that in MMA now. As they're moving out, they're moving around, possibly taking too big of angles. When you watch high-level boxing in K1 or stuff, they're kickboxing, I mean, they're taking a lot shorter angles off of punches and counters. So I still think MMA has a ways to come as far as that, but that could also be because of the wrestling will make you take bigger angles.
Ayer has 68 and then 90 is Corey
For what?
total strikes.
So who has more, you said? Who had 68?
68 is Ayer.
Oh, and then Corey had 90?
Yeah.
Yeah, he landed...
That's what it's saying.
Yeah, so Ayer landed, if I remember correctly, he landed a lot of heavy leg kicks, but I think Corey really peppered him with the hands, and I think he peppered him with some leg kicks as well. I know Anderson won by being more aggressive, again, with that footwork, circling him, peppering him, kicking him a little bit, moving around the ring. He looked really good. But he didn't really throw a lot of combinations. So going back to what we said was Gus's problem is you got to throw combos. You can't just throw jabs and move around a guy. You can win fights by points that way, but you don't know what you're risking doing that. You can slow a guy down by hitting him with some power shots. So Nothing here. I thought it was impressive again with Anderson's footwork, but his hands. It's not like he really has that knockout power, that one punch knockout power. He can wrestle you to the ground, but Ayer stuffed it because Ayer's a really good wrestler. He's a really strong guy. He has that lower leverage on Anderson, so they were pretty much standing up. That's kind of what I expected when you get two good wrestlers. I think I actually said that in the first podcast, but I thought Ayer would land the better shots up top. So Anderson proved me wrong. Again, so Corey, this might be a good opportunity to see if he's legit or not. I think this is his third fight that he won in a row. So if he wants to see if he's legit, he should fight Gus, who just lost to John Jones. I think so, to see if he can match up with, or potentially take a title shot next. I think that's the next natural thing. And then Latifi. As long as he's healthy, he didn't really take too much. Neither guy took too much damage from this fight. It was pretty boring, to be honest. He actually mentioned moving up in heavyweight, which again, this guy's like 5. Oh, did you ever see? Is he like 5'10", 5'11"? It should stay up at the top at his stats. I mean, he's a short guy, and he's talking about moving up to heavyweight. I was like, dang. We'll see if that actually happens. He's actually a teammate of Gus too.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it on here.
So
just tells you the strikes and takedowns.
But I know for the most part though, like I know he's not the tallest guy, even for 205, let alone heavyweight. So, but he is a solid dude. He's very thick. All right. So the next one we have Mendez versus Volkanovski. I think Sean picked Mendez in this one, right?
Let me see. Mendez.
Right up there at the top.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah. And I picked Volkanovski. Honestly, I did not see Volkanovski being able to do what he did to Chad. I was hoping that he'd outpoint him and show up, and he did exactly what I was hoping he'd do. He looked fantastic. He looked like he just looked like a fresher Chad Mendez. That was a great way to open up that pay-per-view last night, watching that fight. This is the crazy part. So I think both of these guys were about the same height. So Mendez was number 5 going into this fight. Volkanovski was number 10. They're both the same height. I think they're like 5'6". But Volkanovski, we talked about that weird reach advantage. Mm-hmm. His reach advantage was 5.5 inches longer than Chad's.
Wow. Okay.
Excuse me. So that's crazy. I know Sean made a comment. He was like, "It's weird to think that these guys look like they're in the same weight class as Holloway and Ortega." You won't know this part, but actually, you did watch the Holloway and Ortega fight. Remember, you called Ortega the pretty boy. He had the braids.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Was he trying to get his face avoiding? Wasn't he the one that was like don't do it. Like he's trying to avoid people hitting his face. It was one that was actually trying to get people to not hit his face. It definitely
wasn't him because his face looked completely different after.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So Holloway. It definitely wasn't him. Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
So Chad was countering nice early in that fight. Volkanovski was setting up. He had a really, really nice jab, which I was impressed with. We're starting to see a lot more MMA fighters really work the jab, which is nice. Typically, they haven't done that. They've relied on power punches a lot. Again, because of those 4-ounce gloves, any punch can knock somebody out. But Vol early on, set up that jab, and I think that's what ended up getting him through. So by the time, round 2 came around and he started throwing those shots, he had already set those up with the jab. So if I remember correctly, I wrote down in my notes, I thought the first round was very even because Chad was getting the better part of the stand-up. Volkanovski was getting the better part of the stand-up, but Chad had a takedown at the end of the round. So I thought it was a very even round. These guys looked like they were fighting in a mirror, to be honest. I said,
wow, okay.
Just because they look very much the same, and
they
fight,
do.
and
yeah,
they fight.
they
fight a lot the same too. And then round 2 was wild because Chad ended up hurting Volkanovski early, but Vol ended up hurting Chad. So Chad was coming in, he was throwing heavy shots, trying to hit Vol, put him down, put him away, and Volkanovski came back with some counter shots and really put Chad down. And man, he looks really good.
Yeah,
Volkanovski looks really good. I am excited to see him. He probably has one more fight before he's fighting Holloway. Like, he needs to fight one more top 5 guy, I think. They might shoot him up because Holloway has nobody else to fight. He's cleared out the 145 division. But maybe Frankie Edgar. Ooh, I just thought about that right now. That might be a good fight for him. But, yeah, so round 2, Volkanovski really turned up the striking. He's really started throwing those power shots that, again, he had set up with his jab, and he was teeing off on Mendez, and he really wore Mendez out. You could see that he was physically tired. He was backing up, and then he just went in for the kill. So very excited to see what's up next for Volkanovski. Mendez, still a fantastic fighter. I think he's just going to be one of those, if he continues fighting, he's just going to be one of those gatekeepers, essentially.
Right.
So what a gatekeeper is essentially somebody that's just, sitting there. They're always in the top 10, but they're not going to have those title shots because they never seem to be able to win the big fights, but they can launch other fighters into those title fights.
Oh, okay.
Because they just never, for whatever reason, they just never win the big ones. So,
Gotcha.
like a Donald Cerrone or something. So. But yeah, no, excited to see the future for Volkanovski and Mendez. Always, always, always fun to watch. So will be interesting to see where he goes next. So I think what was the next one? It should be under prelims. That one was Arlovski versus Walt Harris. This one was just ugly.
Which one?
It was Andre Arlovski versus Walt Harris.
But remind me of that one. Did I see that one? Because I know I did see.
They were heavyweights.
The guy that kept going on the ground, kicking?
Oh, God, no. That was Ryan Hall.
We need to talk about that one.
I'll talk about that one.
Because I don't even watch fights.
Yeah,
but when I watched that, I was cringing because I was like, come on.
Yeah. So just for a quick note, I'll briefly talk about Arlovski versus Harris. Yeah. I'm definitely going to talk about Penn versus Hall. And then I'll briefly touch on Kat versus Megan Anderson because that one obviously ended weird. And then Douglas Silva de Andrade versus Jan, because Jan looks like a fantastic prospect at 135. So I'll just briefly touch on that too. But Arlovski and Walt Harris was just an ugly fight. Unfortunately, it wasn't the slobber knocker I thought it would be.
A slobber knocker?
Yeah.
You want to explain that?
Slobber knocker is like when you see these heavyweights, they just throw hands.
Okay.
And they just knock the snot out of each other.
Nice.
That's why we call it that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I was waiting for something else to be explained, but I like that one.
No, it's not pretty. Like, that's exactly why we call it that. It's just one of those ones where they're going to go out there and bang. But I think Arlovski has taken so many shots. He's a former UFC champ, a heavyweight champ, but that was so long ago. His chin is so far gone. It's like glass, that thing. Nothing, it's not his anything against his toughness. If anything, he shows his toughness by getting back in the ring all the time. But Harris was hesitant. He definitely doesn't look like anything impressive at heavyweight. He's in his early 30s, so it's not like he's a prospect and somebody that's learning and maybe just the moment was too big for him. He doesn't even have a fantastic record. He's just this run-of-the-mill guy. He didn't look impressive to me. Arlovski was clearly trying to counter-strike, so I won't necessarily put that on him, especially with Walt Harris being the big, ugly swinger, right? So It made sense because one of the things I said going into this fight was Andre's got really clean, crisp boxing, especially for a heavyweight.
Right.
So he was looking for those counter strikes, and unfortunately that's what happens when someone that's typically a heavy striker gets hesitant is now you're just watching a fight of guys waiting back. Oh, the other thing I remember Walt Harris did all the time was throw these stupid feints. That's like when you throw you're going to pretend like you're going to throw a jab, or you're going to pretend like you're going to throw a punch, or you
But he kept repeatedly doing it to the point where it was frustrating. Is that what you're trying to say?
Because the thing with feints is you want to throw those. Feints are good.
Right. And
the reason you do that is to see how your opponent's going to react. So if I want to throw a left jab, how is their head going to move? How is their body going to move? If I was going to throw the right cross, how are they? Which way are they going to move? Are they going to move to the side, to the left, to the right, whatever? And then if you throw body feints to see if they're going to try and defend the takedown or something, you just want to see their fast twitch movements. So then that way you can throw your combos against that, right? So if I keep throwing my jab and I keep seeing your head go to my right, guess what? I'm going to throw that feint jab and throw a cross because I know it's going to land, right?
Okay.
Or if I throw a body feint and I see that you're going to defend the takedown, I might throw a knee or an uppercut because your head's going to go down and it's going to meet my fist or my knee.
So you should do it, but he just repeatedly
he never threw a punch. He did it for 3 rounds. He threw feints, and he never threw any punches.
He never actually did anything that would be the reason why you would do it, why you do the feint. Okay, gotcha.
And you can attest that to having trouble finding your range. Sometimes that's tough. I had trouble with that in my second fight. I actually fought a shorter guy in my second fight, but I was training with so much taller guys that I was used to coming into the pocket, but this kid was shorter than me, and every time I started getting into the pocket, which was tough. Or even if I just threw a jab, he came in and tried to get takedowns. So it's always tough. It's not necessarily just being the taller fighter, but which I think Walt Harris was actually an inch shorter than or maybe he was just as tall. But either way, I can understand that. But you're not going to find your range if you don't throw any punches. He hardly threw anything, and it was just. I think in the first round he was winging some big punches, but then by the second round it came to a screeching halt, and it just ended on the most boring note. So nothing impressive there. Both these guys, run of the mill. Andre always used to be fun to watch, but he's just old, I think.
How old is he?
I think he's in his late 30s at least, because he fought in the UFC a long time ago. He was like one of the first heavyweight champs. So.
Okay.
So don't really care where either of them are going, quite honestly.
Moving on.
Yeah, so the next one I'll touch on is Kat Zingano versus Megan Anderson. This one was disappointing.
That's a freak accident, though.
Yeah, I know you were excited to watch this fight too.
Yeah, I was actually.
Because Kat's wild, she's tough. Megan,
I mean, don't get me wrong. When I first started, I was wondering why she looked like that.
Oh, why she was doing her head switch thing?
She seemed she just seemed like it was her first fight. Like the way she was doing it, it almost made it look like she was nervous. She's like, and I'm actually making a really funny right now movement, just so you know. Like the head. Yeah, it was just weird.
I talked briefly about that in the previous podcast. I think it's just because she doesn't have really good stand-up, and it's hard to read. So, I mean, even though it's funky and it's stupid and you're just like, why would somebody do that?
Why are you looking like that?
It's hard to punch somebody like that because you're timing their head movement a little bit, and your eyes are jerking around with their head. Right. I mean, I don't know how well it takes because she still wears a lot of shots, but But this was very unfortunate, because Megan, I got to throw one head kick, which Kat was ducking out of the way, and took her nail across the eye.
Oh man, that hurt me. Yeah, I was like, oh God, please.
Megan Anderson didn't travel halfway around the world from Australia to win that way.
Know.
You know what I mean?
She looked very disappointed, which I don't blame her. I would feel the same way.
Yeah, because you don't want to have a whole fight camp. I mean, granted, she got the TKO.
Right.
But that's not the way you want to end the fight. It would be completely different if it was a round and a half of action. Mm-hmm. She was winning the fight, and then that happened.
Well, she went for it. After it happened, she kind of went for it. But that's when the guy.
Yeah. Because
it.
and to her credit too, she said like she was waiting to see what the ref was going to do because Kat had turned her back and she was up against the fence, and Megan hesitated for a second, but the ref didn't call it.
Right. He waited until after she started doing.
I want to say the ref for that one was Mark Goddard because he always seems to let stuff go on too long, and it's like, dude, stop.
He might have not known if she was that injured because she turned away. Because he wasn't looking at her.
She grabbed her eye immediately, and then
she didn't grab her eye.
Yeah, she like went like this, and then
I don't want to see that. I thought she just ran straight to like the.
And then she turned away from the fence. Like she grabbed her eye and like did the stop motion, and ran to the fence. But Mark Goddard, I'm pretty sure it is him. He really hesitates, which sometimes can be good, but sometimes can be. Sometimes could be bad in this case too, because I mean Megan threw like a quick hook or something from behind, and then Mark Goddard finally stopped it.
Right.
But yeah, that was disappointing. That was disappointing. Wanted to watch that fight. Wanted to see how.
I first didn't know how badly injured her eye was until I saw blood, and then I was like, shit.
Yeah. Luckily, it was a laceration, so I don't know if maybe she just got her eyelid cut.
I mean, if you get hit in the eye, we all know it hurts. And it stings for quite a while. So on top of that, it's cut. So it probably feels 10 times worse. So, I mean, I don't know if she has any major damage, but...
No, I mean, that's a good thing.
Still hurts a lot,
Yeah, that's a good thing is I guess reports were that she got it fixed right then and there. Hopefully they can run it back. Again, feel bad for Megan Anderson. She traveled halfway around the world to get a TKO by nail to the eye. So, just a few seconds into the fight. So, but yeah. So we'll see how that goes. Megan Anderson might actually just have a good opportunity to fight Cyborg here, as we mentioned earlier in the show.
There you go.
This is a good opportunity for her to fight her. So that'd be fun. That'd be interesting. Because it's always interesting to see when you have somebody that's so dominant like Cyborg who loses to see how they rebound. Because they look like an iron wall. They look like exactly what John Jones looks like right now. It looks like nobody's going to beat him. And then just somebody pops up out of nowhere and has their number. So... all right, so we just got 2 fights left. I'll quickly touch on Douglas De Andrade and versus Peter Yan, or I think they would pronounce it Petre Yan. He looked impressive. Douglas Andrade has great Muay Thai, great stand-up. He's a strong dude. He moves fast. He takes angles. Yan had perfectly timed striking. He was very calm. He was very collect. He was throwing straight shots. He was standing right in front of him. So Andrade was the faster fighter, moving left and right, moving left and right, circling him, trying to keep him on his heels. But Yan stayed tight. He had a very high guard.
Oh, okay. I had to look it up. I wanted to see which one you were talking about.
Actually, if you
were very impressed with that.
Yeah, actually, if you can read me some of the striking from that fight, I'd be very interested to hear some of those stats.
Yeah.
Because the crazy thing is, like, the way Andrade's body looks and the way he throws with such ferocity, like, he looks like he's landing harder. But Yan was up, he was throwing straight shots, and it looked like it hurt Andrade very bad. So Yan had some great combos he threw, if I remember correctly. They started out the bout like a Muay Thai fight. They were throwing kick for kick. So like in a Muay Thai fight, if a guy throws a leg kick, you can expect your opponent to throw a leg kick. So they were doing that for a little bit. One would throw a body shot, the other would return a body shot. So that was pretty interesting. But these guys kick hard as crap for 135 fighters.
And he got really badly messed up, right? That's why they stopped it?
Yeah, so this was the fight Andrade. They stopped between rounds.
So Douglas has 56 total strikes, and Yan had 202
strikes.
That's what it's saying. I mean, maybe you want to look at it just in case, but maybe you never know. Well, no, I'm reading the top part right here. I don't know if that's. Is that it?
Wow.
All right then.
He landed 70%. He threw. Because he won, Douglas's corner actually stopped the fight after the first round because he was so damaged. Yeah. Which kudos to his corner, because we saw that.
Well, that guy was explaining it too. Like he was saying they need to watch things like that because they also need to make sure their people are protected. Because
in the last in the last big UFC card, the Fox event, the final Fox event, there was this one fight where this guy took a beating for 3 rounds. Sorry, I just want to look at that. Yeah, if you want to read that stuff off to me. But where he took a beating for 3 rounds, and everybody's just like, shame on the ref for not stopping that, but even more so, shame on the corner for letting their fighter and someone that you would assume is their friend take damage like that, because the fighter's not going to want to stop. So kudos to Andrade's corner for stopping that fight, because he got beat by the end of that round. I think he had some cuts. Jan was just throwing straight down the pipe, man. That I think that was a good example of how accuracy can just win you fights in the strike game. So, yeah, can you read off some of those numbers?
So there's strikes by position, distance. So for Douglas, 52, and for Jan, 84.
So let me see with that one.
So it'd be 54% for Jan. Douglas, 35% for his total. So for distance, strikes by position, distance.
Mm-hmm. So that means that they're not in a clinch. So you see the next one says clinch. So that means like when they're in tight, they're like essentially on top of one another, which Jan won pretty much everything. I mean,
no, look, yeah, his numbers are extremely high.
Yeah.
Ground, 90 for him, 0 for Douglas.
Yeah, I think he ended up taking, did he take Douglas down, or did Douglas shoot in for a takedown, and then Jan, either way, Jan ended up on top, and that's really where he did the biggest piece of his damage, I think, at the end of the round. Wow.
98% for strikes by target head.
That's actually, I'm glad I saw that stat, because that's another piece that I wanted to see. So we're looking at significant strikes by target, so that shows, whether or not how many of the significant shots are taken to their head, how many they're taken to their body, and how many they're taken to their legs. And the funny thing is here for Jan, like what was landed on him was, what does that say? 64% was landed to his head and only 3% to the body?
30% to the body, 5% to the leg.
Oh, I see.
You're talking about Douglas?
It says 64% of the head.
Right.
30, or is that 30% to the body?
64, 30, 5.
Okay, that's actually not that bad. But the main point I wanted to make here was, if you're looking at what Andrade took, he took an even amount of significant strikes to the head and the body, which means that Jan is mixing it up. That means he's going up top, he's going to the body, he's keeping the level change to keep Andrade's defense guessing, and that's how he was able to land so many strikes, besides getting on top of him and but he got on top by wearing them out too. So, I know, he had a beautiful takedown. I remember that. He had a beautifully timed takedown and got on top of Andrade and really put a beating on him there at the end of the round before his corner called it. So I'm very, very excited to see this kid go. He's only 25 years old. Andrade's 33, so he's a fun guy. I think he's great to stay. But Jan, this should definitely shoot him into the top 15 for 135. I want to see him fight somebody big. I want to see him fight a top 10 guy next. He looked great. If he fights like this against a top 10 guy, I don't see any reason why he can't perform. So they need contenders at 135. He looks incredible. I would definitely like to see him fight a top 10 guy.
And he has no mercy. That's his nickname.
Pitre No Mercy Jan. That's pretty funny, but definitely if I can tell you, if you like watching, if you just like watching fights, check this one out. If you want to, because it should be on Fight Pass because it was an undercard fight. But if you also like watching prospects, because you never know who's going to be the next Anderson Silva and the next John Jones. Right. John Jones started on Fight Pass, or he started on the prelims, so you just never know who is. So certainly check this kid out. He looks like a beast. He's Russian too, so that adds to the intimidation factor. When he's like, Russian, Spetsnaz, whatever. So we just got one more fight we're going to cover. There was a few more, but I didn't really see the necessity to cover those.
Right.
And it was, unfortunately, BJ Penn gave up to that guy, Ryan Hall.
I don't even watch, like I said earlier before we started talking about Jan, I don't even watch fights, and that I was cringing because he kept just throwing himself to the ground and just doing kicks because he wanted to pull that guy down. Mm-hmm. That was the only thing he had.
And that's what Sean and I said, is you would think that the ref would have to find a way eventually to take points away. But Penn was fighting in his guard because he wasn't afraid of his jiu-jitsu,
Right.
which would turn out to be wrong. Penn looked good, though, man. I'll say that. He looked like his old self. The only problem is he looked every bit of 40 years old. He's not the same BJ Penn that tore up the UFC when he was younger.
Yeah.
He looks every bit of 40.
Well, it pissed me off because the way the guy won, because he was so desperate to get someone down on the ground that he
would literally
he just kicked his leg out to get him down on the ground, right? That's pretty much what he did.
He would roll onto his back.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though. It's like he's a dog. It's like
show my belly, rub my belly.
Come on.
Penn was clearly expecting that because he went into his guard. He was feeling him out. He was
trying to go backwards a little bit. Like he was trying to stay away from it.
He hit him with some strong leg kicks.
Got him,
I think he punched him in the head once. He looked great in the stand-up. I think he threw a hook that really – it didn't hurt Ryan, but it certainly had him moving. Mm-hmm. But it just took that one opportunity.
It kind of irritated me. I mean, I get you have to do what you got to do to win. I get that. So that's his thing. That's his thing. But it kind of was frustrating because that's the only thing he had.
Yeah. He has these awkward kicks, and then he has his jiu-jitsu. But I will say, as much as I dislike Ryan Hall, his roll into the heel hook was so terrifying. Impressive.
No, it was still. I mean, that's why nobody wants to fight him.
BJ was in pain. I didn't think that he would get BJ like that because that's something that BJ does. Like leg locks and heel hooks and stuff. That's something that BJ's always specialized in. And even Ryan Hall said it. He's like, I've learned everything from BJ through videos and everything. But but he's somebody that he looked up to. But I think again, BJ's just he's older, but Ryan Hall had a fantastic roll into a heel hook. That again, going back to what I said earlier, that is some high level jiu-jitsu that you see. I mean, it was pretty sweet. As much as I hate that guy, again, just to see him be able to roll into that heel hook, and it wasn't like
he was bad at. He's not like he's bad at obviously that. It's just the fact that it's frustrating. That's all you gotta give. That's the only thing that frustrated me. Yeah. He just kept rolling on his back.
Yeah. His post-fight interview from his last fight against Gray Maynard also made Sean and I dislike him very much. So that's the other thing too. But back to this fight. It's disappointing we didn't get to see more of Penn's stand-up. It is what it is. I think they were mentioning Ryan Hall is still going to fight at 145. He just wanted the opportunity to fight BJ Penn one more time, or one time before he retires, because BJ's got to retire soon. He can't keep doing this. He has 4 or 5 losses in a row.
Oh.
He doesn't fight often. He fights once every year or once every 2 years or something. Right. I was just happy to see he came out looking like his old self, but he did look old. He looked every bit of 40 when he came out there.
I think you'll love listening to that.
Yeah. And he looked like he was in pain, man, when that heel hook landed. At first they were like, oh, he definitely tore something. I would have thought so too, but Penn was walking around fine, so we'll see.
Oh, he's crying right when he left.
Huh?
He's probably like, oh God.
Penn is so tough, man. He's such a tough dude. So Ryan Hall, would be interesting to see how far he can go in the 145 division. He's tall, he's lanky, he doesn't throw punches, he just throws kicks, and he rolls on his back a lot. So
if you always wanted to adopt a dog, Ryan Hall is perfect.
He's the dog of 145, but not a pit bull. He's more like a chihuahua. He's just gonna roll on his back and bite your ankles.
That's exactly. Oh no, he calls himself the Wizard.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing to be called.
Wizard's actually a move in jiu-jitsu too.
Oh,
okay. When you're getting hooks and stuff. But I think it's Wizard because he pulls
even
magic.
Though he doesn't do that.
He pulls magic out of his butt like he did like that where he rolled into that heel hook. So it was impressive. It seriously was. Some high-level jiu-jitsu there, so that's always fun to see. I think especially for casual MMA fans.
Oh man!
Yeah, to see some good high level jiu-jitsu like that's always good, because people are like, oh, it's on the ground, whatever. I don't want to watch this anymore. There's no blood, so it's good. But I think that covers it. That's it for our UFC 232 recap.
Hey, hold on 1 second before you end it there. To make a little fun little thing here, real quick. If you were part of the UFC, what name would you want? What would you name yourself? You have the Lioness, you have the Prodigy, you have the Wizard. You ever thought about that?
Ryan Low-Level Devaney.
And we're done.
I just want to set I just want to set the bar really low. Like I don't I don't want people to have high expectations. Like, oh, he named himself the Prodigy. He must be like there's gonna be something.
You're just trying to make it like, oh, that's a perfect name.
Yeah, like if I go 0-5, if I lose my first 5 fights in the UFC, which they would cut me after 2. If I lost my first 5, they'd be like, well, I mean, his nickname is Low Level. So,
okay.
Yeah, just keep
so
the bar,
it makes sense.
Keep the bar
and then
low.
if you're really good, they're like, oh, he's just being sarcastic. He's being funny. Like,
just keep the bar low, man. That's all I need.
It's true.
So, how about you?
The Cookie Queen.
Cookie Queen?
Yep. So whenever I'm done with you and you're on the ground, I shove a cookie in your mouth.
If you want to know,
and then I always say, "Eat that bitch." And then I walk away. I'm just kidding.
If you want to know the quickest way to Whitney's heart, it's get her Oreo cookies.
God, I love Oreo cookies. And apparently pizza.
Oh, God. Pizza's for both of us, but Cookie Queen is the most...
Would that be terrifying? I don't want the Cookie Queen.
Whitney Cookie Queen, Devaney, no.
Right when I get them down the ground, I shove cookies in their mouth.
The atom weight? No, not at 105.
Oh, my God.
I know what she eats after she weighs in. She goes back to 125 on Oreos.
No.
You didn't put that anyways. When is the next major pay-per-view then? I think it was February 8th. We were checking that out before we started the podcast.
Did we?
It's actually a great card. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Didn't we already have it up? I think it's in another tab on there.
Probably, yeah. Let me see.
Oh, well, I'm
February 9th. February 9th, Saturday at 10 p.m.
And who's the headliner for that card?
Whittaker and
Whittaker.
Gastelum.
It's always so fun to hear that. It's Gastelum and Whittaker. Whittaker. It's nice to see Whittaker get a quick turnaround like that finally because he had a long layoff after his last 2 fights. So that should be a great card. And that's co-headlined by Anderson Silva and Adesanya. So, wow. That should be a high-level striking match right there. I mean, the only problem is Silva's not a young man anymore, and he's taken some beatings. So, well, that's not true. He's really only taken the one beating from Weidman, but yeah, that should be a good one. So actually, you know what? We're going to put a poll up. Make a note of this. I want to put a poll up to see. Typically, there's going to be a huge layoff here, so that I wouldn't have another podcast, I think, because I was planning on only doing the pay-per-views. But I think that in January there's 2 fight nights, I believe. There's probably 1 fight pass and then 1 fight night, and then there's supposed to be a big ESPN card, but that might have got moved into February or March. So if that all moved, we're not looking at another podcast until February. So I want to do a poll, see if people want me to cover one of the fight nights coming up. It's going to be a yes or no question. I just want to know if you want to get some insights beforehand. We can talk a little bit more technique as well. Please give me feedback on Facebook, Twitter. I thought I had our Instagram up. We'll have that up soon, and I'll have that information on our Facebook page. But please give me feedback, Ryan. I want to talk more of the technique, what aspects I would like to talk about on that piece, and maybe we can do some more fight breakdowns if that's something that you're very interested in. I'd be happy to do some shorter podcasts in between where maybe we just break down 1 or 2 fights and we can strictly talk about the technique, why a guy's winning or why a guy's losing, if there's something interesting. Please give me that feedback. I love talking about mixed martial arts. Thank you for tuning in. Apologies if you tuned into our first one. We had some audio difficulties. That was all user error. So, but we're up and running. We're good on this one. So, thank you so much for listening in. And Whitney, thank you for helping out and filling.
Thank
Sean's
you for
shoes.
inviting me to your home and let me be part of this situation.
My house. Do I have the effects still? This is my house.
Nobody understands what's going to happen when you click that off.
Whitney can't hear that, by the way. She can't hear that effect yet because she doesn't have her headphones in, so which is my fault. So yeah, maybe for the next one. But again, thank you everybody. Leave feedback. I'm excited.
Oh, and if you guys want to do feedback, would you rather see Sean on here or the Cookie Queen? I mean, be honest. It's okay if you don't want to see me anymore. I get it. But if you rather see this, I understand.
Write that down in the notes. We're gonna put a poll.
I don't need a red note. I know this.
Whitney,
Cookie Queen or Sean?
Put that down.
Yeah,
we're gonna
5
put
seconds
that.
answer.
Put that down. We're gonna put a poll up.
So bossy. At least I have proof now.
We might have to put all three of us in here.
Oh man, Sean would just walk away and be like, "I'm done with this situation."
Yeah, I can't do this anymore. But thank you guys for tuning in. Whether you're listening on iTunes or any of the podcast downloads, if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. If you see me staring at the camera again, I apologize. I've just got over my computer screen, so I'm checking the audio and everything every once in a while. So
I like to look at myself.
And Whitney likes to look at herself and make sure everything's good. So thank you again, guys, and looking forward to the next podcast.